So I'm really pleased to welcome our three speakers today. We've got Jenny Kartupelis, MBE, Professor Mary Larkin, and Dr. Manik Gopinath. And they're going to talk to us about a research project and a report that they've recently published on the value and practice of relational care with older people. So with no further ado, I'll hand over to the three of you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Yeah, and we're very pleased to be here and have the opportunity to speak to you all about our project, about the value and practice of relational care. And before we kick off with the presentation per se, just want to make a few introductions. So if I could ask, I think Manik's in charge of the slides. Could we get the first slide up, please, Manik? Thank you. Yeah, this is our project. And then if I could have the next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah, well, Manik and I and Jenny were all part of the research team on this project. Manik and I both work for the Open University, so we co-led it. Jenny is an expert in relational care, so she was our third key member of the research team. She's written, I'll let her talk for herself, but she's written extensively on relational care. And during the actual project itself, we did have a research assistant who did the fieldwork for us, but obviously that was time limited to the length of the project. So having to introduce ourselves, I wanted to also tell you about how we're going to structure today's presentation. Jenny's going to start by talking about relational care, obviously for obvious reasons, because of her expertise. And then Manik and I will talk about the project per se, how it was carried out, and our findings and our outputs. And then obviously at the end, we'll have time for questions and answers. So if I could hand over to Jenny, please, to introduce relational care.
Thank you so much, Mary. Manik, could you remove your slide now, please, so that I can reach my talk? Thank you. That's lovely. Sorry to have to ask that. I'm afraid I don't have any slides for my short part introducing relational care. So I think you're all stuck looking with me at the moment. I hope that's the case anyway, and that I haven't gone blank. So first of all, good afternoon to you all. It's a real pleasure to be here in Sheffield in spirit, though I'm actually just down the road in person. And thank you for inviting us to talk about our research project and its follow-up on relational care. Now, this is a phrase you may not necessarily have heard, so I'm going to say a little about the concept before we get to the main part of our presentation, which is about the Open University research, its findings, and our future plans. Relational care is a way of living that has existed for thousands of years, yet only now is it being seriously considered in the context of changing the social care landscape. My own work on this subject resulted in 2 publications based on the voices of older people and carers. I undertook about 150 in-depth interviews with older people, staff, management, volunteers, and families in 40 different care settings, including residential, daycare, and sheltered housing. The 2 books I wrote based on these, one published by Jessica Kingsley and the other by Routledge, reflected the thoughts of all these people I'd spoken to, their feelings and experiences, and explored how new ways of caring can result in better outcomes. But the next and very important step was empirical research by respected academics. And now that we have the analysis and findings of the Open University research, we believe that there will be a greater understanding of the benefits of relational care, and most importantly, its wider implementation. So while I hope I have helped to identify and name the phenomenon, Relational care is no one's invention and recognises the universal human truth of coexistence. In so doing, at the same time, this throws down a challenge to current views of social care provision and what matters to older people and to carers. As humans, we are naturally interdependent, and most of us thrive in environments of sustained, supportive relationships, needing to serve others as well as to be served. Relational care recognises this mutuality and hence questions the primacy of independence as an objective in care planning. It also creates a new way of viewing priorities. These include, firstly, the importance of shared time during caring tasks, rather than just their delivery. Secondly, promoting a sense of personal value, rather than dwelling on and attending to vulnerabilities. Thirdly, shifting priorities to promoting the security of being accepted and respected, rather than focusing totally on safety measures and risk avoidance, which can be so disempowering. There is actually quite a big difference between security and safety, which we might want to explore when we're talking later on. And most importantly, from the point of view of shifting priorities, removing the provision of care from an institutional environment and instead holding it in a framework of love and trust. This reviewing of assumptions also means re-envisioning the care environment. It is natural for people to live in a place they feel is home, not in a hospital, not in a bland luxury hotel, and certainly not in a jolly holiday camp, but somewhere with an atmosphere, decor, and objects that are familiar and within their own control. Re-envisioning demands a better vision, a vision of hope. In summary, making relational care work for everyone means ceasing to see individuals as a collection of needs to be met, where some people are just givers and some are receivers, which diminishes both. This is all very well in theory, but what does it mean in practice? Firstly, it's important to stress that while relational care may be aspirational, that aspiration is based on a reality that can be and has been observed in some of the largest groups of care homes, housing, and facility providers. And I may add, in much smaller groups and independent providers. This research project by the Open University, which you're now going to hear more about, is so exciting because it bridges the gap between theory and practice. It transforms observations into accessible guidance for implementation, underpinned by rigorous analysis and replicable arguments. It helps to create a sound foundation for the vital movement towards rethinking attitudes in social care. And rethinking is becoming urgent, with some 2.5 million people over 50 in the UK not having their social care needs fully met, with over 150,000 vacancies in the care workforce, with a staff turnover of no less than 25%, in an environment where modern slavery is now being uncovered. We desperately need a new vision, one based on wiser use of the resources we already have, diverting the costs of constant recruitment and induction and staff turnover towards better valuing and rewarding care staff, and some of the costs of specialist care and medication in the older population towards a greater resilience and more life fulfillment. But it's not just about the care sector as a whole. It's really about individuals, their right to live life with meaning and purpose, and to find everyday joy. As a care manager said to us during our research, it's about truly living life and what it means to be human. Thank you so much for letting me give you this introduction to relational care. I'm now going to hand over to Mary and to Manik, co-leaders of the project, who will talk about it in more detail. Thank you again.
Thank you, Jenny. I will take over from here, and thank you to the Centre of Care colleagues for having us here today. I am now going to share the presentation. Okay, so no one can deny the challenges facing social care, as Jenny has just mentioned, and the ongoing debates about the demand for care, including how best to care for older people, workforce recruitment and retention issues. In short, questions about designing a care system that is fit for the future. And as Jenny mentioned, relational care is a developing approach to supporting older people, and it is gaining traction as part of a wider movement. We did find through our research, empirical research, and in engaging with various care organizations that some of them are implementing relational care. And so, as with all research, getting to grips with the relational care and fine-tuning what exactly our empirical research was going to do was something which we did through a rapid review and in consultation with an advisory group comprising of academics, care providers, and stakeholders. So very briefly, insights from the rapid review. We found that the term relational care is used quite often now, but not everybody explicitly defines it. And where people have defined it, there are two things that come out. It's more than physical care, so attention to the social emotional needs of older adults. We did limit ourselves to care settings, so this is not an exhaustive across the board literature on health and social care. And the second way the relational care concept is used is in talking about bidirectional relationships, and these are mostly when talking about care staff and older adults as residents. And here it is about recognizing the agency of both people involved in that relationship. So it's very much defined as a relationship. So all of these insights sort of sensitize us to what we must look for when we go forward. And what came out of that bidirectionality of looking at bidirectionality was that we also needed to look at other different kind of relationships within the care home or the care setting. We were also sensitized to through literature reading about who is care staff. So what is the role of people like housekeepers or cleaning staff? Where do they sit? Or the receptionist within this whole area. And from then, it was about also identifying and characterizing the different characters and the different kinds of relationships. So what we did finally, our methodology, our aim and questions then revolved around not what relational care is in as a conceptual or as a concept, but what does it look like? How does it work in practice? And how do we know relational care is happening? And what kind of processes or mechanisms are there which actually make it work? We were also sensitized from our literature review about the role of time, which Jenny alluded to a little while ago, but also how objects and the environment are very, very important to facilitating relational care. And so we were looking out for these sort of things as we went about the research. So what did we do? We carried out 1 day observational visits to 5 UK care settings. This included 3 residential homes, a daycare centre and a supported sheltered housing complex. We employed qualitative mixed method. This was a qualitative mixed method study, rapid ethnography, semi-structured interviews with care staff, including managers, care home providers, the staff in the care home, working in the care home, volunteers and residents, and wherever possible, family members. The study was carried out as we were coming out of COVID, so there was a limitation to how far we could involve family members in the study. And we worked with appreciative inquiry as a method. So knowing from our previous work in care settings what the narrative of care homes is, we wanted to look at what was working well in practice and also why. So there are many key findings, and some of them Mary will pick up, but just to highlight, start with this conceptual diagram that's come out of our empirical work. And this is an overarching finding that the practice where care homes or care settings practice relational care, they prioritize building and sustaining 3 different kinds of interconnected relationships, and as shown in the figure. So an obvious one is between the people living and working in the care setting, which is not only the staff and residents, it's also amongst residents and amongst staff themselves. Then there is the relationship between the care setting and the wider community and locality, families, volunteers, friends, community organizations, GP surgeries, businesses, all local, and the idea and where they intersect. So we've said that the relational boundaries or the boundaries here are very porous, means there is an eagerness to be known in the community and also to be known by the community. And the third is the recognition within the care environment about how important objects are, not just as symbolic elements, but also to keep people also in terms of the material citizenship, how they actively are involved in people's lives. And obviously the physical environment in and around the setting. And where these things are recognized, so where staff recognize that spaces and objects hold meaning, people benefit from that. And the interface between the wider community and the physical environment is obviously in terms of accessibility, acceptability, and movement. So sort of signifying that. Where all 3 of these circles sort of overlap and intersect, that is where people, space, and objects come together to facilitate relationships in different ways. We have also found that responsibility of creating this environment, or actually connecting with within and out with the care setting, is something which lies with the care home providers and the staff working and living within the care home. And now, can I leave this with you, Mary, the next one?
Yes, if you don't mind putting the next slide on, please, Manik. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Manik. So moving on to some of these specific elements that Manik has mentioned, our research identified 3 critical components of relational care, and these are shown on this slide. So, as you can see, the first is an atmosphere of respect, trust, and inclusivity that nurtures belonging. The second is a purposeful focus on relationships. We thought this quote from one of the care managers that we interviewed during the study summed that up really beautifully, because it says it's about the relationships we've got with everybody, include the team, the visitors, the residents, everybody, trying to involve everybody in every aspect of it, and just being there for people and building relationships. And then they go on to talk about how that begins right from when you first step in the home. And then the third key component is a physical environment that facilitates and nurtures relationships and autonomy. A number of features that are often interrelated, and some reliant on practice, some reliant on space, and some on both, contribute to these three components. And Manik's beaten me to it. Thank you very much, Manik. And on the next slide, you can see the three components are at the top of this table that we developed as a model of relational care as a result of the research that we'd undertaken. And this model can be adapted for use in a number of care settings. And as you can see, under each component are the different features of that that we identified, and the different intertwining features within each component. So just to give you some examples, obviously the relationships intertwine there between staff and residents, and amongst residents and amongst staff. So that's how they would intertwine in the purposeful focus on relationships. But you also get a sort of cross intertwining, if you like. So if you look under atmosphere, the second feature is residents feel a sense of belonging and sufficiently at home to enjoy freedom of expression and find meaning in their lives. And we found that was facilitated by the fact that under physical environment, they were allowed to bring in meaningful objects and activities and undertake meaningful activities, which is the second feature there. Many of the care homes that were or care settings that were practicing relational care encouraged the older people living there and taking part with contributing towards the care setting to bring in objects from their homes, not only for their own rooms, but for communal areas. So somebody had a favourite kettle she wanted to bring in, and that was used in the communal kitchen area. Another person loved birds, and she brought in her bird bath, which was put outside her window, but then she insisted on it being moved so that other people could enjoy watching the birds come to the bird bath as well. So that's an example there of how those two features intertwine across the different components. And another first, which is on the next slide, please, Manik. Thank you. Oh, we should have the definition. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, thank you. We developed a way of describing relational care to reflect its central tenets that moved on from the existing definitions that Manik referred to earlier. And the central tenets that this definition reflects are interdependence, the mutuality of relationships, the environment, and the multi-directional flow of care. So as you can see, these come out within this definition when we say relational care is based on the recognition that human well-being requires interdependence. It represents a move away from seeing individuals as a collection of needs to be met by others towards mutuality in caring relationships, whereby no one is solely a giver or receiver of care. Central to relational care is the role of emotional, physical, social, and spiritual environments. These facilitate relationships where there is a multi-directional flow of care and create supportive networks, enabling all of those involved to contribute as much as they can and wish to the lives of their peers and communities. And on the next slide, I'd like to just introduce you. Could I have the next slide, please? Oh, thanks, Manik. I'd like to just mention the toolkit, the relational care toolkit that we developed as part of the research as well. This is freely available, and it has the potential to make relational care accessible to all practitioners and providers. It's got easy to read guidance, it's got real life examples and a question and answer section as well. It can be used on just one-to-one, or it can be used in groups, and it is being used in all sorts of different ways at the moment. So in terms of impact and follow-on activities from our project, we've been really busy ever since we launched it in May 2023. We had a big launch event in the House of Lords at the end of May, and that was attended by a range of stakeholders, including care providers, users, regulators, those working in care settings, practice and academic communities and legislators as well. And we've currently just finished drafting a freely accessible professional development and training resource about the value and practice of relational care. And it also uses the toolkit too. This includes interviews with managers, with residents and staff. It will be available on the Open University's Open Learn platform from March this year. We've been busy following up all our contacts that we made at the launch, and the activities span several different areas. So, for example, we've had many meetings with strategic bodies such as the Department of Health and Social Care. We were invited onto their Care Workforce Pathway Expert Consultation Group. We've had several meetings with the International Longevity Centre UK, and we're planning a roundtable with them later on in the year. We've made a submission of evidence to the Joint Task Force on Housing and Older People. We're regularly in touch with the CQC, who are looking to make further reference to relational care as that part of their best practice guidelines, and they indeed have done a blog on relational care. And we were invited to join the all-party parliamentary group on housing and older people, and we've been to those meetings. With regards to dissemination, links to our documents have been sent to many different organisations such as the Almshouses Association, the Anna Chaplaincy, Care England, Carers UK, National Care Forum and United for All Ages. We've engaged in considerable media contact, and we've published articles in Caring Times, Care Home Management, Millennium Care, Care Talk Business, the Carer UK. There was a discussion on BBC Three Counties Radio. We've got articles in Central Bylines Gazette and Care Talk, the Care Home Environment and the Almshouses Association newsletter, just to mention a few. I won't read the whole list, but I just want to give you a flavour of the range of media coverage that we've engaged with. We've had a lot of interest in undertaking research with us, and we are currently in touch with Cambridgeshire County Council, Embracing Age, My Home Life, Newcastle University, Nightingale Hammerson, Almshouses Association, Centre for Social Justice, University of Gambia. Sorry, I'm getting a funny noise. Is that okay, Dan? Shall I carry on?
But yeah, carry on. We're just muting them now, Mary.
Okay, right. And Worcester University as well. Some of the organisations are interested in extending the research to cover volunteers and family carers. They're also in and domiciliary care settings, but they're also interested in applying relational care to health settings and the NHS, to companion animals and to physical objects, also known as materiality, a growing area. The toolkit is being used and tested in several different care providers, such as Abbeyfield and Athena Care Homes. And we've given numerous webinars and presentations, such as we're doing today. Key ones include Athena Care Homes, Housing Lynn, and the Methodist Housing Association. Our study can clearly influence social care policy in the UK in a number of ways. For example, in relation to the recruitment and retention of the social care workforce skills development, the planning and design of facilities, and statutory regulation. We're delighted by the responses that we've had to date, and are working to make those as fruitful as possible, and would obviously to build on it going forward. Certainly the demand is there for us to do so. So just to sum up, if I could have the next slide, please, Manik. Thank you. This seminal study can be seen as a critical part of the vision for the future development of care practice, in that it addresses what relational care looks like and feels like from the perspective of older people and care staff. It comprehensively identifies features of relational care. It provides information and tools to enable providers and practitioners to embed relational care. It acts as an advocate for practice that can be transformative in the current context of social care for older people. And last but not least, it can stimulate constructive debate and discussion to enable everybody involved in social care to reap the benefits of relational care practice. And to end with, Manik is going to show us some videos of older people talking about the lived experience of relational care. We thought that these would be good to end on, to give you a flavour of the essence of relational care from the perspectives of older people. So I'll hand over to Manik at this point.
Hopefully the sound will come through, but do put it into the chat if you can't hear what the ladies are saying. Okay.
The security is worth a tremendous amount. And
Stop sharing. Try again. Share now.
I love just the overall atmosphere. It's friendly, and yet we can do our own things, you know, in our own rooms. It's just a lovely, lovely atmosphere. I cope pretty well on my own, but life was very different. And I had thought about fold. And I'd seen one or two places around Newcastle, but I didn't think it achieved anything really for me. And I came over here with my daughter and we looked at the room that I've got now, and I said, if I can have this room, that's it. It has been a big relief for her to have me close by, you know, and because I know she used to worry a bit about me being on my own and one and another. I just came here, there were a lot of visitors, you know, there was a knitting bee and there was a man who used to play the accordion, and there was a little more outside activities brought into the home, which was very, very enjoyable. So we've missed that, but I think we've all got used to living in our own little environment now, yes. But they're very good. I really do enjoy my meals, but I don't like Irish stew, so I always have a different meal. But generally speaking, the food is very good, and I very rarely manage to eat a complete plate full. I haven't any complaints about food. This is wonderful. This is a wonderful spot, and it's also nice and clean and tasteful. It's really first class. I mean that sincerely. You know, I really couldn't fault it. So I'm looking forward to having a bit more freedom, and that perhaps we can meet in the sun parlour, you know, for a little chat. But taken all round, it's been a jolly good. Yes.
Hi, my name's Kay and this is my mum Nina, and we're here in Ballyholme, Abbeyfield and Wesley. And mum's going to tell you a little bit about why she's here and how she feels about it. And do you like the fact that, you know, you don't need to cook anymore or your laundry or things like that?
That is a real blessing. that all meals are provided, even break time. The tea and the coffee are brought up on a trolley for us, and we can all sit around and chat. Everybody is very, very friendly and caring here. The only time it's quiet is at mealtime when we're chewing our meal, but in between courses or waiting for the tea to be poured, the chat starts up again. And people are very, very friendly here.
Yeah. On that note, obviously everybody was strangers at the beginning. You've lived here now for, my goodness, 15 months now you've been here. How are your relationships with people here now?
Oh, very good. Even the new ones, and we've had 4 new ones since I came in, and once again they're all very chatty and nice. And Maureen, that sits next to me at the table at meal times, she is very helpful because she knows there are things, you know, when there's a tea bag left in the cup of tea. I have, there's another thing. John bought me.
The tea bag squeezer.
Tea bag squeezer.
Yeah.
But with the arthritis in my hand, I couldn't manage it. And I apologized to him and said, John, I think I'm going to have to give these back to you because I can't manage them. And Maureen says, oh, no, you don't. I'll manage it for you.
And that's what we love.
And she takes the tongs and the cup over, squeezes it out for me, and everybody is very, very helpful.
Things like getting our, nails done and face done, keeping us looking nice is very important. What else? Food. Well, and the people here. People are lovely, so all is well, all is good.
Perfect. How would you describe the relationships you have here?
Are you talking about with other residents?
Other residents, team members?
I find, I must be honest, team members are lovely, really, really nice. Residents, it just depends. If you don't like them, keep away from them.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm not naming names.
Okay, we all have our favourites,
yes.
don't we? And how you could vary these if you wanted? How would you change things if you wanted?
If I didn't like something, you mean, then therefore goes to somewhere else?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would really, but I do speak up when something I don't like. I say it, so no, there is no problem there. No.
So if there's a problem, you feel like you can speak up?
Yes, I do. Yes, very much so.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Monique. So that concludes the presentation.